everybody, it is Romania Black, and we are on episode 4 of Bocchi the Rock. And to think that after this episode we'll be a third of the way through the series so far. I know we're getting a season 2, but a third of the way through season 1 is really weird. The fact that we're a fourth of the way through is bizarre to me, but the show must go on as we would expect. And we finally have met Kita. Kita is hilarious. I absolutely love her. I have a lot of comments to get through for this episode because episode 1 is officially out on YouTube and Patreon, and episode 2 is out on Patreon. So I have a lot of things to cover before we dive into this episode, but I'm super excited for how hyped everybody is about this series. So far, episode 3, I was in stitches. That was so funny. And there's some memes from episode 3, like when she comes out of the trash can and she like pulls the guitar out, like some of that stuff, it just slays me. Like that is just hilarious. And it has me really excited to see where we're going to go to with her character in this episode. So I want to talk about a couple things though that were pointed out in episode 1 and a few things in episode 2. So ad hominem, which is a great username, ad hominem 1747 for episode 1 says, I think it's worth pointing out that while the terms inkya and yokya are usually translated as introvert extrovert, the Japanese concepts are somewhat different, broader, and more socially loaded. Socially loaded in Japanese culture? What? Inkya means shadow or the negative type, a negative mindset, easily discouraged, pessimistic, plain fashion sense, unexpressive, quiet, and keeps to themselves. Socially anxious, worries what others people think of them, like otaku, indoor activities, otaku meaning intensely pursuing a specific interest, which I always think of as like anime and manga, often alone, unpopular, lower social status. Yokya means sunny or positive type, bright and positive mindset, confident, optimistic, flashy fashion sense, very expressive, outgoing, socially active, loud and boisterous, like social and outdoor activities, lots of friends, popular and higher social status. The only thing I will say to that is I don't think it can be, and obviously I'm sure this person did not think that either. I don't think that we can just say, the only thing I have with Inkya and Yokya is they talk about like the way their fashion sense is expressed. And I'm like, Bocchi has like a loud fashion sense. Bocchi's aesthetic is loud and does not match their social persona. So I don't know if those terms exactly match with these characters, because even Rio, who's a loner, has a very eclectic fashion sense. So I'm not sure if we can fully transcribe these terms to them, but it is good to know the cultural context behind it so that we have a little bit more backing. So thank you, ad hominem. Cisco Kid 1214 says Starry is based on an actual band in Japan called Skelter, which is why it's so realistic. And yes, it still exists and you can visit it. The VAs actually did a concert and music session there. I love that. I love when anime and manga incorporate real life places. I know people have shared some photos in the Discord channel for Bocchi. I've also seen people share things for like Ace of the Diamond or Daya. I've also seen like the Bar Lupin that's in Bungo Stray Dogs. I want to go to it if I ever go to Japan. I want to go to Bar Lupin. I want to sit there and have a cocktail, even though I don't drink hardly at all anymore. I love when anime is able to incorporate real places. Like March Comes In Like a Lion has a lot of real life locations as well. So I think that that's really cool. So that's worth noting. So cool. Thank you for pointing that out. I love it. It's great. Adius Barbatus for episode 1 says, fun fact, Hitori is the Japanese counting word for one person. Her younger sister Futari is the counting word for 2 people. So they're literally just kid 1 and kid 2. I freaking love that because that is so on the nose for this being a comedy series, and they don't draw attention to it, which makes it even more funny. They're just like, yeah, you're kid 1 and you're kid 2, which granted, if their parents are as young as we think they are, that might have been just, I don't know, call them kid 1 and kid 2. Oh my God, Hitori and Futari. Oh, that's so funny. That is freaking hilarious. So thank you for that. Caleb H3803 from episode 1 says, the girls' first names really are Hitori, Goto, Nijika, Ijichi, which I do like saying Ijichi, but I'm going to try to say Nijika. I'm going to try to get myself into it, and Ryo Yamada. And actually a fun trivia is their last names are all references to the members of the Japanese band Asian Kung Fu Generation. Interesting! That's so freaking cool. I love that reference. Speaking of translations, Kesaku Band has a pun layer that was difficult to convey. It does mean a cable tie or zip tie, but also just the kesoku part is the word for unity. So Najika was really trying to convey a unity band with her name pun. Here's hoping they'll live up to it. Oh my gosh. I love that they're doing so many puns. And I love that you all are trying to incorporate explaining them to us, because my Western ass misses so much that I'm sure Japanese audiences or those that speak Japanese are like, aha. So that's really cool that you all explain that. Now, I will say that Frank Ace, or Ace22 over on Discord for episode 1, said something you brought up during your watch was why people wouldn't want to hang out or approach Bocchi, but she's so cool. Seriously, she's cool, and I would have loved to have been her friend, especially being a musician and a music lover myself. But because she stands out, that might be the problem. Culturally, Japan is very conservative and conformist, and in schools sometimes, standing out or being different will get you shunned or bullied. While maybe better now, was a problem with those disabilities and those who transfer from other schools because moving is somewhat rare, which is why anime, the classes always make a big deal about transfer students. I had never thought about that. So yeah, standing out worked against her, but the cool people are the outsiders anyway. I had not thought about that because, yeah, in a lot of anime that are high school slice of life, it is like a big deal to have a transfer student. So that kind of makes sense. And there was a whole big discussion on Discord about this. But what I also think is interesting is that I have watched other series. I'll use March Comes In Like a Lion as an example, which I encouraged Ace22 to go watch. And I encourage you all to if you haven't. But there is a big discussion about conforming in schools, and if you don't, you are shunned or bullied. That's a big plot line. I'm not gonna say any more because I don't want to spoil that series, but that makes a lot more sense hearing it described as such. So thank you for pointing that out. And then for episode 2, Alex Cornejo says, you weren't sick. Your voice was just cosplaying sick Bocchi. P.S. For shippers, Bocchi has given Najika her dowry, so rules say they now have to marry. I still do kind of ship Bocchi and Najika, but I want to spend a little more time before I christen the ship and hop aboard it fully. Now, as far as Rio and Kita go, oh yeah, no, that ship's already sailed. But I want to wait on that. But thank you all. And honestly, to Alex Cornejo's comment, you all on Patreon, YouTube has not seen episode 2 yet, but you all on Patreon were so kind about my voice being shot for episode 2. I was really, when I tell you I was worried about that episode, I was like, shit, nobody's going to want to watch my reactions after episode 2. They're not going to want to hear me talk because they're going to think it's stupid. I really got into my own head and was so nervous about that episode. I'm like, oh, everybody's going to hate it. And you all were very kind. So thank you for being kind and sincere in your comments, because that made me feel so much better. I was having a Bocchi moment where I wanted to crawl inside a cardboard box, and you all really helped me to feel better after that. So bless you. Thank you. Kelvin says for episode 2, I just want to take a moment to say everyone needs a friend like Najika. We really do. My best friend is, I would say that my best friend is the Najika to my Bocchi, because she is a major extrovert and she feeds off of energy from being around people. And she encouraged me in college. We met in college. We've been best friends ever since then. She's encouraged me to get out of my shell and go out and do things. And honestly, I owe a lot to her for that. So she is definitely like Najika in that regard. And then they pointed out, Kelvin pointed out a lot of song titles, which are really, really cool. But the one that got me was that the band in episode 2, Alexandrism, the ones that talked a lot, one of their song titles is, and I quote, about the odds of meeting you in town, counting the days of August. It's the most hipster of hipster names. You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of Scott Pilgrim versus the World, where the one band is like, we hate you. Or like, I'm sad, so very, very sad. Like, it just like the song titles being so ridiculously long, unironically. God, I love it. It's so funny. And then finally, Kumi Ray for episode 2 says, no spoilers, but the songs in the show and albums were released as Koseku Band, and all are sung by the voice actors, which are the ones sang by which characters. Especially the endings in the show, they're quite matching with the story development, which I thought was pretty cool. And then Jav Gamer for episode 3 on Discord says, I love how this show has a Punnett square type set with its 4 main girls, the 2 axes being social anxiety and extrovert versus introvert. And let me tell you, as someone that loves genetics and the study of genetics, the moment you say Punnett square, girl is there. So I love that we have Bocchi is our introvert with social anxiety. Kita is our extrovert with social anxiety. Najika is our extrovert with no social anxiety, and Rio is our introvert with no social anxiety as well. So I kind of love that. I love that we're getting these girls that kind of all mix and match and make this Venn diagram of all of their extrovert versus introvertism and their social anxieties. I think it's freaking cool, and I'm kind of all about it. So yeah, thank you for listening to my comment discussion, because you all have left some amazing comments. I'm looking forward to seeing what the comments YouTube will leave for episode 2, and then what you all leave for episode 3, which we'll touch base on next week. But in any case, I am super excited to see what we're going to get diving into episode 4. So I hope you all are as well. But we're not going to waste any more time. We are going to dive into episode 4 of Bocchi the Rock. And we are going to do that here in 3, 2, 1. And I'll see you all on the other side. I love all these girls. I wanted to go back through this episode because there were a lot that they showed us like in behind the scenes that I was like, I need to pause to read that or see it because it's so good. Like we start out with Rio going to back to the CD store that's closed, and we'll talk more about that when we get to it. But there's like Everybody Cats, Cali Kamina, there's a skate poster, and she's staring at it with her umbrella. But there is it says August 20th, and it looks like an old, okay, so this is an old band poster where it says the BB band collab, and there's one that's called Chikara Babies, but then there's the band she used to be a part of called the Hamu Kitada. I wonder what that means. Hamu Kitada. Does that mean anything? Doesn't look like there's any direct meaning to it, but what's interesting is it looks like Rio kind of stands out in her band and she's looking away from them in the poster, which makes me wonder if, like, you know, she just wasn't into it at the time, which is interesting, especially after she talks with Bocchi about they both kind of have like a friendship started because of their view about lyrics, which is a lot of fun. But I really love the way that this episode sets up all of them and kind of their goals. They're trying to be a band, but it feels very realistic for a bunch of high school kids. Like, well, how do we become more band-like? Well, we sell merchandise or we take band pictures, and it feels very high school, but it also feels very realistic. I'm going to do some comparisons to Given in this episode because Given is Given is like the all-male somewhat equivalent of this series. I would argue that there is a lot of give and take. But there is a lot of give and take though, because I would argue Given is very much a BL, so it has a romance element to it. And also the characters in Given are a little bit, some of them are older, not all of them, but some of them are older. So there's a little bit of maturity difference. But with the main character, Mafiu, I'm going to talk about him a little bit with Bocchi because they have some similarities in this episode that I want to talk about. But I highly recommend Given. It's so good. But I do like that this episode kind of shows all their personalities starting to come out, and they're starting to like work through it and everything, which is great. I wondered whenever Kita was wondering if she could sing and play the guitar at the same time, because that kind of hit me. I was like, oh, is she gonna be able to focus and do all of that? And then she's like, well, I could just sing, but then what am I supposed to do on stage when I'm not singing? Honestly, and I'm not a musician and I'm not someone that studies music, but what I have observed is usually if they're a vocalist and they don't play guitar, they usually have like another instrument. Can we give Kita a cowbell? Can we have Kita with a triangle or a cowbell on stage and she's just playing it when she's not singing? Can we have that? I've got a prescription and I've got a fever and the only prescription is more cowbell. I feel like we should ask that of Kita. I don't think that that's a lot to ask. But obviously, I mean, they're in high school and she's like, I'm supposed to play guitar. One thing that I like about Kita is that even though she has anxiety about this, because clearly Rio and Najika don't have that anxiety. She's kind of like Bocchi in the fact that she does get a little socially anxious when she's not, singing. What does she do on stage? But I like that rather than what Bocchi does, which is kind of freak out, she is just like, no, I'm going to lock in and just get better. And Bocchi's like, so much charisma all at once. What do we do about this? Also, Bocchi's like, no, 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 no. Her back and forth, like, no, is so funny. And Kita asks if she would sing with her to, like, kind of solve that problem. And she's like, no. Now, what's interesting is at this point, the other girls, Kita has no clue. Kita has not let on whether she knows about Bocchi's persona. But Rio and Najika know about the persona because they listen to her music. So Bocchi would obviously not want to sing because then people might figure out that she is the YouTube persona and we can't have that. So I could see why she's very against singing. I kind of love the idea that Rio points out of wouldn't it be hilarious to have someone with such a bright, bubbly personality singing these very dark lyrics. And I was like, that's amazing, actually. I think, again, of Puella Magi Modica Magica, of like this upbeat, happy song that's lyrics are terrifying. I'm like, of course. Well, yes. So I kind of love that. Also, I'm getting ready to go to an anime convention with my brother in a couple weeks, and I've been trying to figure out what I want to cosplay as, and I kind of have one decided, but I'm kind of unsure about the other, and I really thought, like, what if I cosplayed as Rio? If I got a blue wig and, like, some of her fashion staples and just cosplayed as Rio, could I do that? I think I might, because, like, my eyes can be my eyes are naturally green, but sometimes, depending on the time of year, they get a little hazel, so they would kind of look like hers, and I don't know. I might get a blue wig to cosplay as Rio, and then I could cosplay as her on the channel. So we'll see about that. But I really love Rio. I am not Rio. Rio is probably my favorite character besides Bocchi so far. I am not like Rio though. I think honestly I'm a mixture between Bocchi and Rio. If I'm thinking about it, I don't know. I'm not an extrovert, so I wouldn't describe myself like I'm the polar opposite of Najika. Like Najika, no. My best friend's probably more like Najika, but I am not. And I wouldn't describe myself like Kita either. I'm not as down in the dumps as Bocchi and as socially awkward as Bocchi, but I am kind of more of a loner, but I'm not as dry as Rio. So I guess I'm a loner like Rio, but I'm not as dry as Rio, so my humor is more like Bocchi's. I guess if Rio had Bocchi's humor, that would kind of be more me. I guess that would be the thing. I'm like Rio with Bocchi's humor. So I get kind of drawn to Rio. And I am all about the mom and pop shops. Like if I go somewhere with my brother, like when we go to this anime convention, I usually try to find like local restaurants. I don't like chain restaurants. I want to find local businesses to support. I like to try new foods that are like local to the area. I try to avoid fast food and chain restaurants if I can. And I know that that sounds pretty bougie, but you can find a mom and pop store that has really cheap food. You really can if you just search it well enough. So, or that's the same price as a fast food restaurant because fast food restaurants in the US are not as cheap as they used to be. So you might as well buy local if you're going to do that. So I don't know. I feel like I share in Rio's appreciation of local stores, and I do feel really sad when places close down. Like she talks about the CD store that closed down, and she feels really sad about it, and about the bookstore that closed down. I had that similar experience where when I was in college, there was like a movie rental store that was locally owned. It wasn't a chain. And then I found out a couple of years ago that it shut down like during the pandemic because it couldn't, the pandemic was kind of like the nail in the coffin, but then, people stream a lot now. They don't have as much physical media, although you should sometimes because of stuff disappearing. But I felt really bad because I had like a membership card from them that I found like in one of my drawers. And I was like, oh, I still have a membership card from them, which was really sad. So I related a lot to Rio in this episode, which I thought was really cool. So like, let's meet up at the club. And I love, now, one thing that I do connect with Najika on is Najika has this giant drawing book with ideas. I like Najika's organization and strategizing. I do connect with that. I'm like, I can relate to such things. But also poor Bocchi, becoming more band-like. I love the idea of the EDs changing with the new songs. Like, that's really cool. Somebody had pointed that out on the Discord, and I really love that. And so I definitely want to keep track of that as we go. But they're like, how do we become more band-like? What do we do? Now, I kind of like that there is a little bit of a difference with Najika and Rio's strategies this episode. Like, Najika's like, well, if we're going to be a successful band, we have to do A, B, and C. But Rio kind of gets to the heart of the matter in that you need to find a way to stand out, right? And it's funny that we think of Stand Out because Stand Out is a song from a Goofy movie. And when Bocchi talks about being charismatic, she turns into like Goofy from an extremely Goofy movie in the disco scene. Hilarious. I love those movies so much. But I would say that honestly, Najika and Rio coming together are kind of like a formula for content creation because I sometimes wonder, I read a little bit about that too, being like, well, how every content creator has to be somewhat different. You have to find your niche. And I kind of can understand, again, another way that I connected with Rio this episode was that you see like what a lot of reactors do that's popular, and there's a part of me that's like, but I don't like that and I don't want to do that, even if it's the popular thing to do. If you do it, you kind of lose your individuality. So I've had conversations like that where I do want to grow my channel because I am a competitive person and I want to like better myself and do better with what I'm doing and try to like kind of keep advancing with what I'm doing. But at the same time, there I see some reactors, and this is no tea or shade to them. Like, what they do is what they do, and everybody's different. But I see some reactors that people like recommend to me, and I go watch their stuff, and I'm like, it's just not for me. It's just not my style. And so, but some people like it, and that's totally fine and normal. But I feel like what Rio is saying, that if you just try to adapt to what's popular and you're not being yourself, then it won't be authentic and it won't make you special, and you'll just become like another blend in the crowd. And I'm like, I don't want to do that. So it is what it is, right? But yeah, so it's like imitation is the highest form of flattery, but Rio is not exactly someone that wants to imitate others. She wants to stand out. I do love the idea of the zip tie as merch. And of course, Rio is like, how can we make the most money popular as possible with this? And I love that she's like, we'll sell the zip ties for 500 yen a piece. And Bocchi's like, that's such a ripoff. And then we'll sign it and sell for 150 yen more. I do love the idea of the zip ties as merch because that's something really cheap, but also something that's like directly tied to your band and its marketing. I think that's smart. You can make them in different colors. The thing that got me wasn't the Instagram, like a meet and greet, a 10,000 yen a year membership. Now granted, if you were a popular band, and how much is 10,000 yen a year? I don't think that it's a crazy amount. So 10,000 yen is $70 a year. Honestly, $70 a year for a band membership where they get to go to a takoyaki party at the end of the year. I could see some people that are fans instantly agreeing to do that. Like $70 a year and you get to go have a barbecue with the band. That honestly, there are people in the US that would do that in a heartbeat for a band that they liked. But I love that Rio's like, and they bring the ingredients. Rio's like, they have to bring the food because we're not supplying that for $70 a year. That is hilarious. And of course, Kita is instantly like, sign me up, because she has that extrovert personality. And then, of course, Bocchi's like, but what do you want me to do? I don't know. So she had all these boxes that she was digging through. It said new stuff. What do they say? Life, entertainment, outer space, identity, laws, fukui, types of fish, dreams, part-time, outer space. Outer space is in here a lot. Home life, new stuff, internet, memories, passwords, Chiba, future, society, digital. I like that outer space is there twice. It's really funny. She's into the space things. But that's when Nijika says, oh, no. Bocchi is writing our lyrics, so she's got to focus on that. Now, I can connect the character of Bocchi a lot to the main character of Given, who is Mafayu, because in Given, I don't want to give too much away, but Mafayu and Bocchi are both very similar in two aspects in those series. One, they both kind of have some social awkwardness or anxiety. They're very similar in that regard. And two, they are tasked to come up with lyrics and they struggle with it. So they're very similar in those aspects, although their circumstances are quite different. I also like the way Rio, I relate to so much in this episode. Another way I relate to her is that she talks about that she can't write unless she gets inspiration. Oh my God. I am the same way. Like, I get in the mood to watch a series and react to it pretty easily. But when it comes to like, I'm working on a bunch of video essays right now and I have like 4 started at once. But the thing is, I have to get inspired. And if I'm not motivated or I don't get like a spark of inspiration to write, then there's no point in asking me to write because I can't force myself to do it, right? I eventually in college had to make myself make outlines because I was very much that type of person the first couple of years of college. It was like, I'll just sit down for 4 hours a day and just chuck out a draft. And eventually that only takes you so far before you really have to kind of buckle down. But I relate to Rio so much in this. So yeah, she's like, what a super easy thing to do. I'll just write a song and it'll be a huge hit. And even back then, at the time, Rio was looking at her like, something's off. So we go back to her house. I want to comment on her background of her home, where her little sister's outside playing with their dog and everything. They're in like, it looks like their sister's room. There's like toys everywhere and books and there's stuff hanging up. I love that her parents are both folding the laundry together. We don't see a lot of the dad's face in this, but we see the mom. But they both look so like they're just like working together, which is like relationship goals. Good job. Also, I love that we have Bocchi writing her name like in so many different ways. It's super cute. I've perfected my signature, which is awesome. She's like, I get my priorities in order. Yeah, we don't get to see the dad a lot in this. The dad's face is hidden to us. And I don't know if that's intentional. There is a character in the OP that has hair the same color as the dad. So I'm like, are they related? Is she going to be like Bocchi's aunt or something that shows up? I don't know if there's a reason for them not showing us his face all the time. Is he kind of like socially anxious like she is? I don't know. But she's like, I spent 5 hours yesterday editing videos to escape reality. God, you can relate to that. There are some days where I'm like, I probably should be working on something, but I'm like, I'm going to go and do this instead. And then I end up just like doing that project all day. And I was like, yeah, sometimes you just need to escape reality, right? So, oh God, that was so fun. Yeah. She's like, I'm stupid. I'm a paramecium. And then the one sister who looks they both look like their mom, which is amazing. Like, what you writing? And she's like, don't look. And then she goes back looking through everything and finds her lyric notebooks from middle school. Now, I wanted to see this. I bought the ingredients for a voodoo doll at 2:30 this morning. I do the deed. 5-inch nails, white gown, straw doll, mallet, all I need. The pain won't end in just 7 days. Conk, 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 I drive it in. Conk, 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 it's 2 a.m. Conk, 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 I drive it in. Conk, 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 here all alone. Every day alone I curse you. Tremble in fear. La, 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 la. That is amazing. Oh my God, girl. I would listen. Angsty middle school me would have been all about that. So then we say, okay, let's get organized. She says, pretty nice. Okay, so Goto, social anxiety. Yamada doesn't talk, but not socially anxious. Great at compliments. Eats weeds. Oh my God. Oh my God. That's amazing. She's like, Kita is going to be singing the song. Cheerful lyrics, maybe a session song. But I could write easily depressing lyrics, but would it match her aura? I do think that it is kind of cool, the idea of her singing that way. But when Bocchi tries to think of her being a cheery person, she's like, I'm an extrovert. And she like imagines being at a disco or surfing in a pool at night after she takes off all the disco clothes, which that whole sequence reminded me of Yuri on Ice, just for a brief moment. And then the woman who claims the title of Queen of Woot in the house being like, I was like, did this just become Inoo for a hot second? And I love the animation of her like doing this little jig. I want a gif of her just doing this. I want a gif of her just doing this because this motion is like absolutely hilarious. I kind of love it. The Queen of Woot. Woot, 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 go, go. I love it. She's like, when she said, let's get some vibes up in here, The animation and the way that she's drawn looked like when Gojo from Jujutsu Kaisen is trying to be cool, and that just slayed me. Tequila shots in the house. She's like, that's not being a cheery person. That's just being a party animal. And then I love her sister and the dog. And then her parent, she's like, no more shortcuts. You must become Kita-san. And then she's like, and then her parents show up. She's like, come on over if you want to go to Shibuya. I love that again. The mom has the same hair color and the same eye color. The dad, we don't get to see his eyes or face at all, which I'm like, I want to see the dad's face so bad. But I love that they're just like, why is she acting this way? What is wrong with her? Is she possessed by a spirit? I love the dad showing up with the prayer beads and like, do we need to go get an exorcist for you, sweetheart? God, it's so funny. God, it's so funny. And then she's like, no peeking. She's like, if I find status quo affirming lyrics annoying, irresponsible, but I need to do this for the team. I love that she's like made her space as minimalist as it can be so that she can concentrate in there. But I feel bad for her because she, she wants to be herself. And she's like, these lyrics seem like they're sellouts. And then she shows up with the band and she's like, is this an intervention where you tear into me? And her sign says, I failed to write the lyrics I was assigned. Poor Bocchi, but I do get where she's coming from because I have felt that way too. Like you all know this from watching my update videos. I feel like if I don't meet an obligation or I set personal goals for myself and I don't meet them, I feel like I'm a failure and that y'all are going to have an intervention with me. And so I can relate to Bocchi quite a bit in this episode. And I'm glad that all of them are so kind to her and they're like, no, it's totally cool. Also, I kind of like their individual fashion. If we're ranking outfits, I mean, I think my least favorite is honestly Nijika's. Like the purple outfit is fine. I don't think purple and red go together at all. So the red tie around her wrist, like it just clashes to me, and I'm like, no. But it works for her. Works for her. I really like Kita's outfit. The orange and gray plaid skirt is super cute. I love the shirt with the tank top under it. It's adorable. And then Rio's fashion is just so effortlessly cool. I love it. It's great. So they decide to go take a professional band photo. And Bocchi's like, I've never taken public photos before, so this is going to be insane. And she's like, I've never taken photos except for school, like taking band photos. I also noticed people were sharing in the Discord, like them walking through town and seeing like all of the coats and like the street fairs and all of these like different locations. They seem like they're in real life, which is super cool. I love that. I love like a lived in gritty city feel, and this definitely has it. Also, I know from my generation, like when I was in like late high school, early college, I know that we always loved taking pictures. And so trying to find like cool graffiti and like places to go take photos at, like it's so much fun to like walk around a town and find photo op places. Like it's just, it is kind of narcissistic and kind of, conceited, but in like not a harmless way, right? Now, I do really love when they go to the park. The stairs, for example, why didn't they take pictures on those stairs? That would be a bitchin' band photo. Like, you can't go wrong with a staircase. That's so cool. I would have done it there. I would have taken the pictures there. The staircase would have been my choice. I do like that they show the little deer and the snail like bouncy things in the park that they play on, and then later when Bocchi's like showing her in the foreground, in the background you can see like the realistic shot of the snail and deer. Like that part was really cool. I kind of loved that. But yeah, they're like, well, we've covered all the bases. What was the stuff that Kita was drinking? She's like, it was Milku's like milk water. I don't know about that. On a hot day, maybe not. But yeah, they're like, I wish we'd brought our instruments. And here Najika's like, well, you guys would look cool with your instruments, but I would just have my drumsticks. And she's just like this. But Rio's like, but that could kind of be cool though. I think that Najika could have made the drumsticks work. I think she could have. But anyway, I really liked, at first I liked the vine wall that they walked past. I thought that Bocchi was going to point that out. But then they talk about like the wall of the shop that was closed down. But So like you just had to mimic Rio's expression in these pictures, which makes them all kind of look like zombies, which is hilarious. She's like, where do you get all that confidence? I love it. I love that Rio just marches to the beat of her own drum and doesn't care what anybody thinks. Also, Bocchi looking the same in all the original pictures is hilarious. So they did take pictures on the stairs. I thought the pictures on the stairs were super cute. I liked that. I thought that was sweet. And then they took pictures there on the equipment. I thought that was good. Poor Bocchi just looks kind of like she's standing the same way the whole time. And also the angry chicken that's on Najika's phone case is really funny. She's like, you look like you take a lot of pictures. And she's like, I have an Insta. So on her Insta, we see that she's friends with a girl that has like pink hair too, but with magenta eyes. And then she has like the coffee. She's in the maid costume. We see her birthday seems like it was recent, which is cool. Our minister of social media. But Bocchi-chan died. Bocchi-chan cannot do social media, which I am not like Bocchi-chan in that regard. I do like kind of social media. But her, like, I love her just spirit evaporating from her body. That's so funny. And Kita's like, she's flopping like a fish. She's dying. She's like, I've never taken pictures with friends before. And so then she talks about how all of her friends have been basically like school photos. And she says, I've never had friends before, which is so sad. It shows her like in grade school. She's like, I've only taken a picture with family. And then it shows her like through elementary school. And then she chopped her hair off before middle school. And now she's grown it back out again for class photos. These were the only proof of my existence the past 15 years. So she's 15 years old. Mm-hmm. She's like, I wonder if there are any other high school girls like me still around. I think that there are. I think there's a lot of people that just are not, they're either not photogenic or they don't like being photographed. My mother, personally, I cannot get her to smile in pictures like 90% of the time. She's just not a person that smiles in photos. And I smile in like every photo. So I'm like, come on. She's like, no. So everybody's just a little bit different. Maybe I've become a rare species on par with the Tsuchinoko. For a second, it like the whole thing took on a like Uzumaki vibe, which was terrifying. But yeah, they're like, would you want to start your own Insta? And then her vision starts to like glitch out. She's like, no, my own Insta would be a terrible idea. She's like, no, someone with bad social anxiety does not need to start a social media account. She's like, what if I turn into an attention whore? I'm like, Bocchi wants to become popular, but in the same vein, she wants to become popular, but she doesn't want to be a narcissistic or conceited. And I'm like, oh, girl. So she's like, nothing's hitting the spot. And that's when they decided to do a jump photo, which a jump photo is great. I think it turned out really super cute. Mm-hmm. Even if she looks like she's about to faint in that photo. So Bocchi is trying to figure out, I love that Najika's like promoting all of these different options, like the CD release and the band debut, that none of this has happened yet. And they're like, we still need a song. But we've got Rio and Bocchi on the case. So Bocchi's sitting there with her lyric book and she's like, the lyrics bar is high, but what do I do? And I really liked what she said here. She's like, I don't want them to be mean to me, which I was like, when she said that, I'm like, they're your friends and they're nice. They're not going to be mean to you. But then she said, or worse, they're going to be obviously humoring me. And at that, I went, oh, yeah, they might do that. That's a good point. Because, yeah, it's like, it's almost worse for somebody to be like, oh, those sucked, than to say, oh, no, it's great. And then it to be obvious that they're not. So I really felt for her in that moment. And she's like, I don't think Rio would ever humor me. Everybody needs a friend like Najika, but it does not hurt to have someone in your life that is like Rio, that doesn't humor you or lie to your face, that is brutally honest. It's good to have someone like that. We, on the team that I coached, there was a girl that was on the team this year. She's graduating now, which is sad because I'll miss her. But she was very much like that, where she was brutally honest. Like, would just tell you her absolute honest opinion to your face, whether you wanted it or not. And that can be intimidating, but it honestly was kind of refreshing. I love that Rio, she says, it's a pleasure to make contact with you. This is Bocchi speaking. If you happen to still be in Shimokita, do you think you might be able to look into my lyrics? And then she says, I'm here, come by. And she sends her like directions to this restaurant, which it called Le Chic, and it just opened because everybody's giving flowers for the grand opening. Of course, she's like, I want to try out all the new places. I hope Rio's not like a curse of things opening and closing. Now, what's interesting is that Bocchi has never been to a real restaurant by herself, which she's 15 years old. At 15 years old, I can't say that I would have been to a restaurant by myself. Now, with family, yeah, I didn't have a car at the time, so probably just with family or if like friends invited me to go with them. But I don't think at age 15 I had probably ever ate at a restaurant or walked in by myself. When I tell you that she was like, hello, are you winning diners? Are you winning diners is so funny because of all things she could have said. That's what she chose. And everybody there is like, oh, hey, Bocchi. And she waves from the back over here. God, it's great. I love it. So Bocchi doesn't get anything. She just gets a coffee and Rio gets a drink and the curry. What I like about this scene is that Rio does not force conversation. Rio seems like she can tell that Bocchi is not the most comfortable person in this moment. And so she just lets Bocchi take a moment and for Bocchi to make the first move, which I kind of like. And she finishes eating and then she's like, what should we do? And you could tell that she's trying to fidget around and think of what to say. And then Rio's like, just let me see the lyrics. And she's like, okay, here you go. I love that at first she like looks at the logo and she's like, oh, this is a masterpiece. I like this one. It's personally, I think it's a bit childish for a band. And I was like, oh, come on now. But then she takes her to the lyrics. And I like that Rio doesn't come out and say that they're bad or good. Instead, she says, what do you think? Are you satisfied with these? And Bocchi, of course, is like, well, no, but I thought that these would be something that we should do to be popular. So the lyrics that she had thought of was like, can't do it anymore. You say as you give up on moving forward on a road that seems to go on forever. It feels like you'll never arrive anywhere. And that's got you worried, doesn't it? But hey now, listen up. Don't forget you're not alone. We're all here. We're sending you this cheer just as your heart's about to break. Your dreams will come true. Don't give up until the very end. Your dreams will come true. Believe in yourself and get walking again. Glory awaits you ahead. I know it. For everyone around the world trying hard, go for it. It is really cheesy. And Rio's like, the lyrics are awkward, but I liked how honest they were when I was writing for the band. But they were desperate for sales and started to get in a more commercial direction. And I hated that, and that's why I quit. We had a fight about it at the time. And then I like Najika coming into everyone's lives, poking your cheek and being like, hey, join my band. Hey, play for me. I really like the way you sound. Love it. And she's like, I tried to give it another try. And this line here, abandoning your uniqueness is equivalent to dying. God, I love that so much. Like the moment you stop being you, you might as well die. And it's like, oh, I love it. I love it. I love that. And she's like, I want you to be you. Don't write generic lyrics just because of what someone else wants. And she's like, well, I'd write bitter social outcast lyrics. And she's like, wouldn't it be hilarious if Keto was singing that? I spend my days cursing you losers. I love it. And then I love that she's like, let's get out of here. And then she's like, oh, by the way, you're paying, right? Now, I would not do that. I would not dine and dash or make somebody else pay. But I do appreciate that she says she'll pay her back. I love it. And I love that Rio has faith in her that she's going to try things out. It's cute. And she's like, okay, I finished the lyrics. I stayed up all night. I'm assuming maybe they're the lyrics that are in the ED. But they're like, it might not connect with too many people, but those it does, it'll hit deeply. And I love that. I love that from a content creator perspective. I love hearing that just in life. Like, what you create might not affect a lot of people, but for the people it does affect, it is good. So I'm like, those are words to live by. And I kind of love that. So go Rio. Go Rio. Love it. So then she's like, I managed to figure out the lyrics, which I love. Bocchi's pajama shirt, super cute. And she prints out the team picture. And then she's like, I'm going to do my best. Uh-huh. I hope the band can stay together forever. And I can get lots of pictures with everyone. But then she like just shows like her room and it's been completely covered by the photos. And her just laughing. What an evil villain. What a menace. Oh my God. So, oh my gosh, this episode was great. I love that we got a little bit of this was a great episode to be a third of the way through the series because we established Bocchi writing the lyrics, we established the group being okay with them, we established Rio's backstory with her band and how she wants to keep her uniqueness. We established Kita's making progress. Nijika is like the biggest ray of sunshine. Like we established so much in this episode and have so much to build off of moving forward. And it was just hilarious. I loved it so much. So, yay! But anyway, so I'm super excited. I'm very curious to hear your thoughts down below. But I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, I'll be back very soon with more Bocchi the Rock. Bye!